Hi, today I'll present a summary of our paper in psychological safety and behavior-based quality and show how these concepts are connected with a focus on people and value delivery. In the construction industry in general, we still see a number of persisting issues related to quality, safety, and production. And this has resulted in rework, accidents, delays, cost overruns, and loss of trust. The way companies have been dealing with these issues is problematic and doesn't actually address the role that human factors play into the design and success of construction processes. Some of the trends we observe today are that one, construction industry is moving towards increasing value delivery. We see practices such as choosing by advantages, integrated project delivery, share risks and reward. However, we still see present in the work environment characteristics such as workers' inhibition or unwillingness to speak up when errors or mistakes occur in the workplace. So a concept that is really important for us is psychological safety because it is essential for learning organizations. And let's see how this concept has evolved over time. We start with Shane in 1985. He actually developed the concept of psychological safety in the context of change, suggesting that someone can face a change without losing their identity, integrity, or membership in groups they care about. Then we had Kahn, who broadened the concept beyond organizational change, and he defined psychological safety as feeling able to show and employ oneself without the fear of negative consequences. Then we had Edmondson, who expanded the concept even more, and she suggested that it is actually applied to teams. And she said that it is a belief for interpersonal risk-taking. Taking these definitions into account, we also agree that psychological safety is a feeling in its application in the construction industry, but it is based on assessments of the future about the risks associated with an action. Something that we also want to highlight is that construction projects can actually be seen as a social unit because it brings together multiple people from different backgrounds, participants that might speak different languages and might have different beliefs and perceptions in order to deliver one project. So in this context, something that is a concern for us is that we have this research, we have read a lot of research on social sciences that said that actually employees' silence is a common issue that we need to face and we need to overcome because it does impact trust and ability to discuss and define expectations and commit to a well-defined scope of work. This description resonates with what it's called behavior-based quality. So we'll be exploring theoretical foundations to understand areas where the core ideas of these three concepts overlap. And we have also identified some excerpts with data that we are going to be, that we show on the paper and we're going to be sharing now. And I conducted interviews, questionnaires, and on-site observations for about a year. And we had participants from different companies. We had a client representative, we had subcontractors, a general contractor participated in the study. So quality, one of the first areas we're going to be analyzing today is the overlap between lean and quality ideas. Quality is an important concept when it comes to project performance because understanding and managing it correctly allows errors and defects to be mitigated in the first place. So quality was understood long ago as conformance to requirements. Then it was about uniformity or fitness for use, no deficiencies. Lately though, the approach has changed with the realization that quality is a dynamic concept. It is subject to change and ambiguous in some cases. So that's why it is necessary to agree on certain conditions of satisfaction to make quality something measurable and achievable. Let's see two huge areas where lean and quality ideas overlap. We have first the principle of respect for people, and here mainly underlying the notion of a simple controllable production system was the notion of a simple controllable employee. And that vision simply doesn't work anymore for our reality. Studies in behavioral science have demonstrated that fear inhibits learning and cooperation in the work environment. But now we live in a knowledge-intensive world that requires people who share concerns, mistakes, have firm ideas, and speak up with confidence and ask questions. So another area where ideas overlap is the need to have a clarity on the language action perspective, because one of the main topics that we talk about whenever we have lean talks or lean presentations is the idea of reliable promising. So a prerequisite for this is that suppliers can say no to a request. And in work environments where respect for others drive people behaviors, individuals have the confidence to talk about mistakes, preventing their reoccurrence, and they have the capacity to innovate and try out new ways to make things better. So something that closes the loop in here is the idea of behavior-based quality, which requires conversations where expectations are articulated and shared understanding is achieved. So quality and lean, the idea for respectful people, which requires that each person be helped to develop their capabilities. And when we revised studies done long ago, even the quality gurus, they early on highlighted the need to foster respect for others in many ways. Principles that resonates with the lean principle respect for people were highlighted somehow. And we have an example with Crosby saying you cannot and should not fool the people. And in construction, too often we deal with post-mortem analysis full of surprises because quality issues go unnoticed and unreported throughout the construction process. So the idea is that through respect for people, we can actually support a learning and continuous improvement in our organizations. And something that else that we would achieve through this, if we are able to manage the language action idea, and we have clarity on that, is that we're going to get clarity of requests and commitments, which are key on the planning process to have reliable projects. Let's explore now the overlap in ideas between psychological safety and quality. We had Deming, one of our quality gurus, also saying that top management should publish a resolution that no one will lose their job for contribution to quality or productivity. So in this context, we also have to be aware that fear is ingrained in the work we do, and in an environment where fear drives decisions are actually constrained due to the consequences that might result from such a decision. So being aware of this, and also the studies that had been developed later that says that people might actually choose not to speak up, even though consequences can harm the team in exchange for self-protection. Having an awareness of this situation can help us actually take action so that we create an environment where actually we have psychological safety in place. Because if not, this can cause unhealthy or unhealthy behaviors, having as a result, people who hold back on everything from good ideas to great questions. So a couple of important areas where these concepts overlap is the idea of psychological safety and how this builds learning behaviors, because quality in construction projects concerns getting clarity on the work we do. And quality in construction begins with understanding the intent, which gets translated into a set of documents. We have the drawings and specifications that are part of a contract. However, this intent can change over time and be subject to interpretation. So people from different disciplines have specialized training and use a specific terminology for the field in which they work. And when different disciplines come together, teams have to be careful on what is taken for granted by people in other disciplines. When we think about psychological safety and behavior-based quality, we see here that in building psychological safety, it is expected that every member of the team takes ownership of their contribution to achieve quality. We know that tasks in construction combine multiple disciplines and require judgment, coping with uncertainty, implementing new ideas, coordinating, and communicating with others. If we have teams that are not able to move things from the unknowns to the knowns, every day will likely have its surprises. And let's now have the three concepts together and see where are the ties in here. So in the lean world, we've come to the understanding that reliable promising can be understood as the basic process underlying the behavior-based quality, which is a quality approach that focuses on people's behavior. While reliable promising has been recognized as a critical element in planning and coordination, its application is much more broader, and it includes situations in which one or more people are responsible for delivering and providing something to someone else. Also, the underlying behaviors for behavior-based quality can be understood as those enabled by psychological safety, namely to speak truth to power, to feel free to ask questions and make suggestions and ask for help, and to be confident that mistakes you make will not be met with punishment, but with help. And lastly, we have the clients deserve to know exactly what companies have committed to deliver and must receive exactly that. So how this looks in practice, we actually collected data of the experiences project participants in these construction projects that we studied have. We can see that psychological safety fosters respect for others and builds environment of mutual, measurable, authentic care where interpersonal risk-taking is welcome. We also found that psychological safety facilitates an active and open participation in process design and ownership of operations. We have an example here that one of the architects in the project told us that he thought that by bringing the craftspeople, allow them to incorporate their knowledge, and they could suggest solutions that exceeded what they thought they could achieve. So they just met, and this was a story that they met with the Terrazzo subcontractor, and he made suggestions of installation that were much better than they had anticipated before. Something else that we found is how project participants can understand value beyond requirements. And actually, if we think about traditional quality approaches, those fail in recognizing a couple of things. One is the ability that stakeholders' leadership have to facilitate a process that supports psychological safety. And the second one is that plans and specs might not be totally accurate, complete, or might not clearly express clients' expectations. So we have to go beyond that. We have a story here that one of the project engineers told us in the project, and he said, like, the day in which they had to revise the mock-up on the project, the mock-up for the benches of the building, the architects went and looked specifically for the welding details of the benches. And he was surprised because he said, like, the welding details were only like 3 words on the specs, but that was the very first thing that they went and looked for, and they care about it. So I wish I had known about that before. And the idea of understanding that it isn't because in the specs it isn't specified or the description is not long, that the architect or the client might not care about it. So having this understanding allow the team and the project engineer to anticipate or be proactive in this type of situations later. We also see how psychological safety look in construction project, or what the effects are actually. we see that psychological safety can shape project participants' interaction and make the difference between getting a common understanding about expectations and try to really know or have a confidence that you are going to build something that the client and the architect are expecting you to do, or discovering problems and defects later on when it's much more expensive to fix things. Also, we have that people from different backgrounds get together and collaborate within and among teams in a fast and changing environment. Project participants are gonna just come together. People who might have not met before ever are gonna be working to deliver a project, and it's important that we know what we need to be working on. So how do we foster this type of environment? How do we make sure it occurs? We have actually included a table with the outcomes we collected in the 2 construction projects we analyzed. And in this table, we describe some of the common factors that we found were significant for creating a psychologically safe work environment. But something that I want to highlight is that it is not a universal solution. Teams are different, cultures are different, and from place to place, their needs are going to be different. So I would suggest you adjust something or work on identify something that's going to work for your specific team or the environment you're working with. And just to wrap up the ideas we presented today, we have when we think about lean psychological safety and behavior-based quality, we see that there's a common pursuit and means to deliver greater value. And there's this idea of actually coming to a common understanding, but for that, we need to make sure that the environment we're working on allows us to express ourselves and say, hey, I don't understand something, or hey, I'm not gonna be able to build this in the time you're giving me, or I'm not going to be able to build this, or it's not clear for me because of many reasons. We know that sometimes requirements, let's say, for example, in drywall, whenever we install drywall, there's drywall 1, the finishes can be from 1 to 5. If our labor is not, our labor is used to build level 3 drywall, then having the general contractor expecting a level 5 of finishes for drywall, it's going to be much more difficult to achieve, if not impossible, with the labor and that subcontractor specifically has. So we have to know the limitations we are working with and we are working around. Lean has the customer as a priority, but in construction, being such a multidisciplinary industry with high dependency among players, there's no one single customer that we have to think about. And all the intermediate customers are just as important as the end customer we're going to be delivering the project. Lean psychological safety and behavior-based quality all lead to or require respect for the individual. With respect for people, you see an increase in productivity, higher quality, and open more conversations. So we just have to find the ways in which we are going to be able to show that. If teams apply Lean, opening a work environment of psychological safety where behavior-based quality can flourish, achieving the expected outcomes would be more likely. I hope you enjoy what we had for today, and please, if you have any questions, you can just send it to me beforehand or come to our session. I'll be glad to discuss those with you. Thank you.